Hi, my friend. Welcome back to the Declutter 360 podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Diekman, and I am so thankful that you have found this podcast and that you've been tuning in and listening to all the tips and tricks and ideas that I've shared with you about organizing. I believe that you're here because you have a desire to get organized. And hopefully now you have an idea of why it is that you are desiring to get better organized in your life. And if not, or even if you feel like you do have a good handle on that, I think today's episode is going to offer you a little bit of a different perspective. Okay, we're going to kind of hone in on less of the how to organize your physical space today. And we're going to take some time to step back and talk about the mindset piece that is so critical in achieving that level of organization that you're looking for in your life. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, what you want that to look like today, how to figure all of that out. And I'm going to share a little excerpt with you from one of my favorite books. Uh, the inspiration for sharing that, I've read it multiple times. I've seen it shared by many people, and I kind of forgot about it, but I think it is going to really ring true with you, whether you have heard this story or not. But back up just a little bit. I just got back from an incredible event a couple of weeks ago. Okay. And I went to Columbus, Ohio to go to a live event. It was called Next Level You Live, hosted by Jenna Klopfenstein. If you haven't ever heard of her, and especially if you are an entrepreneur, I highly recommend looking her up on Instagram because she is just a really incredible mind to follow, to give you inspiration. And, I definitely, she has an energy about her that is absolutely magnetic. And that's what drew me to her and drew me to attend her event. But I'll be totally honest, when I got there, she showed up at this event with a totally different energy, which was in a way a little bit ironic because when I signed up for her event almost 6 months ago, up until the time that I attended her event, my energy had shifted in a way. And I was so blown away that her energy in that moment matched mine so well that it continued to kind of be that moth to the flame draw. But she shared this story, and I had this, as soon as she started talking about it, I went, oh, I know what she's talking about. And it resonated with me deeply, but it resonated with me in a new way. So I'm really excited to share that with you too. But I want to start off by talking about the idea of organizing and getting organized being something more that you have to do. Think about that for a second. When you think about getting organized, being organized, living in an organized way, okay, does that feel like something more that you have to add to your plate? Chances are it does. At some level, it comes off as this like, oh, it's one more thing for me to do. This idea of more being a quantity issue. We want more dessert. So that means we're adding to the dessert we're going to have. We want more, whatever it may be, we're adding. Okay. When we think of more, we think of it in terms of quantity, but I want you to think of the idea of getting organized. Yes, it's more, but it's also more in terms of quality, not just the quality of the appearance of your physical space. I mean, yeah, that's an added benefit to being organized, but Organization can look really different for different people in different homes. It doesn't have to be luxury organization with this perfect matching aesthetic, minimalism. That's not necessarily what organization means. Organization is going to mean something different to each person, or it's going to look different to each person. But what organization means is that you're creating systems that make life easier for you. That's where the quality piece comes in. You're creating not just a system in terms of like how you set your space up, but you're creating a system that becomes a way of living for you. Okay. And that, my friends, serves as this incredible foundation that allows you then to free up that mental space to focus on the things that matter the most to you. So rather than thinking of organization or getting organized as being more in terms of quantity, in terms of things to do, I want you to think of getting organized as adding quality, more quality to your life in a way that's going to support you and your ability to show up in your life exactly the way you want to, because organization removes the barriers that stand in your way and keep you from being able to show up and live your life the way that you want to. Plain and simple. That is what organization is all about. And like I said, that can look really different to different people. It will look vastly different in different homes, and that's okay. There is no one way to physically organize your space. It all depends on how your mental space and your physical space need to work together to help create this foundation for you, for your life, so that you're able to show up the way you want to. Okay. And when you're thinking about this, I want you to take a step back, because a lot of times we get stuck in our own lives in thinking a certain way, in viewing things from the same perspective over and over again. And all too often, that's where we get stuck. And if we want to make these shifts, if we want to change our lives, if we want to change the way we show up and get better organized, then we have to be willing to take a step back. And when you allow yourself to do that, when you can take a step back, see the bigger picture, see a different perspective. Think about if you've ever been playing a video game, okay? And sometimes, the video game Mario Kart comes to mind for me. I don't play a ton of video games, but that's when my kids can usually talk me into playing with them. I love Mario Kart, okay? And you can change your vantage point. You can be driving the cart, looking through Mario's eyes. I like Princess Peach. So let's look through Princess Peach's eyes, okay? Looking through Princess Peach's eyes, my vantage point, it's very, quite literally the vantage point that I have for my own life, right? That I see what Princess Peach sees playing Mario Kart, but then you can also change your viewpoint so that you pop back and you're watching Princess Peach driving in her cart, right? You need to do the same thing. When it comes to making these shifts in your lives, you have to change your vantage point. You have to jump back, take a little step back to be able to see things from a different perspective, right? And there's some questions that you can ask yourself. And these are just kind of the tip of the iceberg, but I want to read some of these questions off for you that can help you to take that step back. Okay. Look at your life and what's going on and help you to make those shifts and think about things differently, to identify what's truly important to you. What are your priorities? You're going to hear me talk about that a little bit in some of these questions. But I think that's a really key piece. The other thing you're going to hear a lot of right here in these questions are why. Why? You have to understand why it is that you feel these different ways, or why it is that you desire certain things, or to live in certain ways, or be able to show up in certain ways in your life. And when you understand that, that's the key to shifting your perspective. So let's go through some of these questions. You might want to pause this, jot some things down, or you might just want to listen through. Maybe you listen through the first time, come back and listen to this episode again and take an opportunity to jot some of these questions down. Maybe even more questions will come up for you. Like I said, these are just the tip of the iceberg. This is not an all-inclusive list, but this is a great jumping off point for you. So ask yourself things like, what's on my plate right now? I think that's an especially important question to ask when you tell yourself, I don't have time to get organized. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to build this foundation. And something that I often tell my clients, and this is something that I have to remind myself of too. When I tell myself that I don't have time for something, I catch myself. I have this awareness now that I can catch myself and stop. And I tell myself I have to change that language. It's not that I don't have time to do X, Y, Z. I want to take out that I don't have time to, and I want to insert I don't want to do X, Y, Z, whatever it might be. And if I can do that, if I can take out that I don't have time to, put in I don't want to, fill in the blank, and that feels right, like, yeah, that's true. I don't want to do that. Then I know that there might be, some deeper digging I need to do. I might need to dig into that underlying why. Why don't I want to do that? Why doesn't that feel good? Why isn't that important to me? But then I might need to find, different things to do, different ways to live my life. But if I insert that I don't want to XYZ and I go, oh no, that doesn't feel good. I do want to do that. Then I know that I can't say that I don't have time to do it. Because if it's something that I really desire, then I need to find a way to do it. That shows me that it's a priority to me, and it needs to be treated as such. Okay. Another question you can ask yourself after you kind of define what is it that's on your plate, which items are important to me and why? Now, of course, they don't have to all be the same level of importance. But I guarantee you, if you list out all of these things that you feel like are on your plate and are weighing you down, if you're kind of reaching that level of overwhelm and you look through that whole list, you're going to find things on that list that you're like, man, that is really not important to me. Why am I spending so much of my headspace and worrying about this and my time and my valuable energy and all this? Why is this being spent here? It's something you need to look at. So you identify which items are important to you. You can also ask yourself, which ones are not important to me? And then taking that why a little bit more specific, why do I show up for these things in the way that I do? You might also take a look into exploring how much energy do you give to those things that you don't want to do. If you are dedicating a lot of time and energy to things that are not important to you, things that aren't priorities, that is absolutely something you need to be visiting and thinking about. How could you shift your energy to focus it more on things that are important to you, things that are priorities for you. And the last question is there anything you're doing now that when you take a step back, you realize that you could do it differently and it would lead to a different outcome? Here's that idea of doing more. I think a lot of times we get caught up in, and maybe this resonates with you. I know it resonates for me, and it has in the past even more. We get caught up in this try harder mentality. If I just try harder to get organized, I can do it. And so we keep doing things in the same way and we keep just trying harder. We think if we throw more effort at the problem, that'll fix it. And it just doesn't work like that, does it? And so here's where I want to insert this, read you this little bit of story. It's from the book 𝘠𝘰² by Price Pritchett. And this is a super thin, super quick read. I highly recommend it. Chapters are like a page or two. It's a really interesting style of writing, but it will hook you in and you will have so many ahas reading this book. And this story is right at the beginning. And I'm just going to share it with you. It says it's a true story, okay, from our author. I'm sitting in a quiet room at the Millcroft Inn, a peaceful little place hidden back among the pine trees about an hour out of Toronto. It's just past noon, late July, and I'm listening to the desperate sounds of a life or death struggle going on a few feet away. There's a small fly burning out the last of its short life's energies in a futile attempt to fly through the glass of the window pane. The whining wings tell the poignant story of the fly's strategy. Try harder. But it's not working. The frenzied effort offers no hope for survival. Ironically, the struggle is part of the trap. It is impossible for the fly to try hard enough to succeed at breaking through the glass. Nevertheless, this little insect has staked its life on reaching its goal through raw effort and determination. This fly is doomed. It will die there on the windowsill. Across the room, 10 steps away, the door is open. 10 seconds of flying time, and this small creature could reach the outside world it seeks with only a fraction of the effort now being wasted. It could be free of this self-imposed trap. The breakthrough possibility is there. It would be so easy. Why doesn't the fly try another approach? Something dramatically different? How did it get so locked in on the idea that this particular route and determined effort offer the most promise for success? What logic is there in continuing until death to seek a breakthrough with more of the same? No doubt this approach makes sense to the fly. Regrettably, it's an idea that will kill. Trying harder isn't necessarily the solution to achieving more. It may not offer any real promise for getting what you want out of life. Sometimes, in fact, it's a big part of the problem. If you stake your hopes for a breakthrough on trying harder than ever, you may kill your chances for success. And so, as we close this episode out, I want you to think about your journey towards getting more organized. Are you being the fly? Or are you open to taking a step back and looking at a new way to approach it? Is there a different way that can help you establish that foundation that's going to allow you and support you in showing up for life the way you want to? That's why I'm here. That's what I want to share with you through this podcast, through the blog, through our community on Facebook. All these things can be found in today's show notes. And all of these things are going to help you live life organized from all angles. Come on back next week and I'll share some more.